Before we jump into this episode, I want to remind you that while Caitlin and Sophia are dietitians, we're not your dietitians. This means the information shared in the Food Freedom Fertility podcast is intended to entertain, educate, and inform. It is not a substitute for medical care. This information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making any changes. Welcome to another episode of Food Freedom and Fertility. As always, I am your host, Sophia Pavia. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist specializing in women's fertility, especially in making enough progesterone, rocking that 2-week weight, having a healthy luteal phase, and implanting that healthy baby within your uterus. And I am joined by my best friend and podcast co-host, Caitlin Johnson, also a registered dietitian nutritionist specializing in women's fertility with a specialization in PCOS and getting you ovulating robustly every cycle. And we are joined today by an herbal expert. So all of your herb questions answered. Is this safe? Does this work? Should I take this? Where should I buy it from? Should it be dried? Should it be fresh? Should it be a tincture? All of these things, we're going to talk about them today. So get out your pen and paper. This is going to be an action episode, and we're pumped. So Caitlin has our guest's bio here. Liane, what is it again?
Moccia.
Liane Moccia.
Are we saying it right, Liane?
Yes,
I don't want
that's
to get
correct.
it wrong. Okay,
Thank you.
so
All right, Liane Moccia.
Liane Moccia, she's a clinical herbalist specializing in fertility and preconception planning, supporting individuals and couples in her private practice since 2017. She's a registered professional herbalist with the American Herbalist Guild, a longtime volunteer as an infertility peer support leader for All Paths Family Building, an education advisor for the Wintergreen Botanicals Herbal Training Programs, and past contributing author and educator for the Herbal Academy. You can find her online at lianemoccia.com, and I think you should also be looking for her new book. Is it out or is it coming out soon?
It is out. It was out in September.
Out in September.
Ooh.
The Herbal Fertility Handbook, Natural Strategies to Increase Your Chances of Getting Pregnant. I'm holding it if you're not watching us on YouTube. It's honestly not a overwhelmingly large book in the sense that
it's not like a
if you pick it up, you're going to be like, and how do I move through this? This is meant for the lay audience to gain information, learn about herbs. I would see it as a good jumping point. You might read it and then still decide you want to work with somebody like Liane. But it's also not going to leave you flat like I didn't get my questions answered. So I feel like it in its purpose, it's going to do that. It's going to help increase your chances of getting pregnant. And we're so happy to have you here, Liane. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome and thank you.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here and talk about this today.
How did you decide to specialize in fertility and preconception?
Yes. So it was partly my own personal journey. So I struggled to build our family. When my husband and I first started trying, I was in my early 30s. And like most people, I thought, well, this is going to be easy, right? I've spent my whole life trying not to get pregnant. Now we'll just, go on and do the thing and become pregnant. And that first year was so hard because I was a type A I am a type A person. And I would go to the OB and say, we're not pregnant. What can I do? What can I do? And I was told the same thing month after month, which was just take a prenatal and come back in a year. And it was just so frustrating. Yeah. Wow. So I have a lot of empathy for the people who are in that 1 year wait. And that's a big part of the work I do, which is you don't have to wait a year. There's a lot we can do in the meanwhile. So I did end up going on and having a lot more fertility challenges. I was unexplained infertility. I ended up going through fertility procedures, IUIs, IVFs. But I also met with a functional medicine doctor, which sort of changed everything and started planting those seeds to say, there's more we can do to support our body. When I started working with a functional medicine doctor, it was the very first time someone checked my vitamin D status, asked me what I ate in a day. Years of fertility treatments, and no one ever asked me, what are you eating? So that shifted things for me. And ultimately we did end up having success. I have twin daughters who are now 17 years old. So I'm way on the other side of it. But that time was so formidable, and it set the seeds and planted the seeds and set things in motion for me to start working with people in a more holistic way. And I knew I wanted to specialize and help people with their fertility journey.
I love that. Did you say formidable?
No, formidable, meaning it just really changed.
Formative, kind of.
Yes, formative. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I was thinking it could have been both, kind of, right? Like,
It
Yeah.
could have been. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
well, we're so happy to have you. Like, if you were to describe to somebody herbal medicine
Hmm.
or herbal strategies, like we hear the word herbs when we think
Hmm.
about, like, my husband meeting me meant he met herbs for the first time. He's like, oh my God, this is rosemary, like cooking with
Something
herbs.
beyond salt and pepper?
Right. Well, or salt, because my mother-in-law can't do pepper even. It's too spicy. But like dried parsley from 2012 is in the cabinet still, right? Like it's fresh herbs. So a lot of us are there, maybe we're used to hearing this in the culinary sense or even
Hmm.
tasting them in the culinary sense. And I think
Yeah.
um they're amazing in that respect. They're also nourishing, and then they can also be medicinal and have like really therapeutic impact. So, if you were describing to someone learning about herbs for the first time, how would you kind of like spread across that
Hmm.
spectrum maybe, or is there even more that I'm not even
Hmm.
kind of previewing?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great overview because it is a spectrum, and the culinary herbs, the herbs that we can grow and eat and bring into our meals every day are still they're very powerful and they're good for our health. And I think that's a part that I don't want to overlook. The moving into like higher doses and the more medicinal herbs, then we start getting into things like herbal tinctures, which are herbs that are sometimes roots of plants that have been dried, or higher concentrations of plants that get extracted in a liquid and then you take it in herbal format, in liquid format. Then there's like dried powders, which you can take in much higher doses of, often again dried herbs. And then there's teas, which can also be really supportive and nutritive. So it is a spectrum, and some herbs are very safe and gentle, and we can eat them in culinary doses and teas and use them in quite high doses. And then there's other herbs that should be used very carefully, in very small amounts under certain circumstances, under the guidance of someone who knows what's safe and knows what isn't. But there really is a big range like that.
That's great. So, when you're thinking about fertility and preconception,
Mhm.
like as a landscape, what what ways do you start approaching or thinking about preconception or infertility and herbs as
Mhm.
a solution?
Yeah. So I think about, at a very high level, for the woman, is she ovulating? And do we have signs of healthy ovulation? Let's look at the menstrual cycle as a whole. Are her periods coming somewhat regularly, generally pain free? Does she have a healthy luteal cycle? Obvious signs of ovulation. And if not, then we think about, well, what kind of herbs can we use to help support the cycle? Then I also look at and think about uterine health because, again, we want to make sure that the periods are coming somewhat pain free, good luteal cycle, healthy bleeding. So ovulation and uterine health are ways that herbs can help a lot. But I also think about sperm production because 30% of the time fertility problems are related to sperm alone, and if we're not addressing both ovulation and sperm, then we're going to be missing a lot of these ways we can support people. And so I think about supporting sperm production, which sperm are highly susceptible to oxidative stress. So herbs that can help support, um, antioxidants, support sperm production, as well as testosterone, because we know that testosterone is really important for sperm production. So, in a sense, the landscape of fertility is looking at healthy ovulation, healthy eggs, healthy sperm production, testosterone production at a minimum. And then it goes a little bit deeper, like, is a person sleeping well? Are they eating well? How are their stress levels? And all of those things, herbs can be a big part of helping.
I think people may not even realize that they could be taking an herb in a supplement that they're taking already, but they're just taking it because
Yeah.
it's this like cocktail of something that somebody told them at one point was helpful, whether it was like their friend that conceived on it or
Mhm.
social media influencer, what have you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
really popular right now to see herbal blends or supplements that have herbs in them. They're often listed as proprietary blends, and then they might be listed out. And we could probably go off on a big tangent on that, but I'm not a huge fan. I think that in general, we should have a lot of transparency with what we're taking and know what we're taking and why, and have it be part of a like comprehensive plan as opposed to something we saw on Instagram or TikTok that someone
Yeah,
said
really
might
ask
help.
yourself the question, what is this doing for me? What
Hmm.
specifically? Not just, well, I heard it was good for my fertility. Like you need more than
Hmm.
that. You
Yeah.
need to hear this helps get more antioxidants into the ovary. This helps with testicular blood flow. This helps with hormone detoxification. Like you
Mhm.
need a really specific job that it's doing in order to be, that's just really what I tell people. Like you got to know what the specific job is of each thing you're taking for it to be worthwhile for you to be taking, and not just a general sense of like, oh, it's for my immune system or something like that.
Right.
Right.
Well, you hear that a lot, right? Like, oh, I'm taking elderberry for my immune health in the winter. But you did a really good job of like talking about buckets. Maybe we could start navigating those different buckets. And I'd love to start with our male partners and sperm health,
Mhm.
testosterone. I feel like low T is something that a lot of people are talking about these days, not having enough
Sweeping the nation
testosterone.
really,
Mhm.
really bad.
Some
Mhm.
of that is
Yeah.
just obesity issue, but it could also be more insidious than that. And I'd love to
Mhm.
talk about strategies that you've seen helpful in the herbal world for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I see this a lot in my clinical practice that, the male partner will come in and maybe they've had testosterone testing already, and we look at it and it's either low or borderline low, or I just see overt signs of low testosterone. And, I always start with sort of the basic landscape, which is our testosterone production is really heavily influenced by how well a person is sleeping. Are they moving and working out and exercising, and are they well nourished? So we sort of always want to start there, and then
Mhm.
Yeah,
on top of
covering the
that,
foundation.
yeah, because you can't like out herb a bad diet. You can't, fix if a person's running 100 miles an hour all day and they're not sleeping and they're waking up early to go to the gym and they're not nourished, they're not sleeping enough. That's going to affect their testosterone production no matter what herb I give them. But then once we've kind of dealt with that foundational, I love working with herbs to help support testosterone production, which is then going to also help support sperm production. So, for example, fenugreek. Fenugreek is one of the most researched herbs for supporting testosterone and indirectly then supporting sperm production. It's a 5 alpha reductase inhibitor, so it will inhibit the conversion of a person's testosterone into estrogen or
Estrogen.
yeah.
Mhm.
So that can be really helpful for a lot of people. And it's safe. It's pretty easy to find. It doesn't have to be an expensive, fancy supplement as long as I'm a big fan of high quality, third party tested supplements. But as long as it's coming from a reputable brand, fenugreek is pretty easy to get and it's not that expensive. So
Mhm.
that's one herb that I often like to help with sperm parameters and testosterone.
Mhm. And it has some healthy side impacts of improving blood sugar balance to some
Yeah.
degree, which can be nice, especially if low
Yeah.
T has a metabolic piece. But something that you said there, I think, is really interesting. A lot of our listeners may have heard of 5 alpha reductase because they're hearing it in the PCOS sense, right? Like we're trying to impact 5 alpha reductase.
Hmm.
In men, we're looking to slow down that conversion of testosterone to estrogen, where sometimes in women, we're trying to speed up
Right.
that conversion. And so just because you're hearing this and you're like, oh, this is good for a man, doesn't necessarily jump the gap that it's going to be good for you. That should maybe seem obvious, but in
Mhm.
case it isn't, just want to draw a little bit of a line there. So, okay,
Yep.
fenugreek. Any
Fenugreek.
others that stand out to you?
Yeah, another one I really like to think about for a person is ashwagandha. So ashwagandha can be really helpful for testosterone and sperm production. Again, it's a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor, but it's also an aromatase inhibitor. So it can help in multiple ways to help a person's testosterone not get converted into other things. Um, there's been some actual studies looking at how ashwagandha can help keep testosterone levels elevated as well as improve sperm parameters over time. It's an herb that takes time to work. It's not something that you can take, and that's true of really most herbs. But once you start taking it, it will take 6, 8, 10 weeks before you start noticing these differences. But there have been studies that have looked at sperm parameters and shown improvements over time with ashwagandha. And ashwagandha is one of these herbs where it's considered an adaptogen, so it might have
Mhm.
other benefits for a person. So
Mhm.
I don't like to make a long laundry list of herbs to support a person's sperm parameters and say, okay, let's do these 10 things. I want to look at the sort of like the menu of herbs that may be beneficial and look for ones that are going to have like overlapping benefits
Mhm.
that are appropriate for that person.
Mhm.
So,
Can,
yeah,
can I ask you questions about ashwagandha? Because that
yes.
is such a popular herb. You'll see it
Hmm.
just everywhere, tucked into a prenatal vitamin, even sometimes,
Hmm.
Mhm.
in a fertility booster, in a stress support, in a sleep support.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of questions about it. Like, how much should someone be taking? Is there a point at which we're maybe taking it too much? Does it matter how it's sort of packaged? Because I wonder, like this ashwagandha that's sort of in this pill with a dozen other things, is that going to be very potent? Do we
Hmm.
need to think about the freshness of the herb? I know with some things like Vitex, the freshness is paramount to its effectiveness,
Hmm.
whereas some of the others, the more they dry and age, the better they are. So, what is sort of the crash
Yeah.
course beginner's guide to ashwagandha?
Yes, great question. So, starting out, you do see it in everything right now, and it's a little bit irritating to me as an herbalist because I see it in very small doses thrown into everything, and it's a lot of
Truly.
marketing, right? It's like, oh, we
Hmm.
have this with ashwagandha, and that comes from there are some very good studies showing that over time, ashwagandha can help you sleep better. It's a potent antioxidant. It has benefits. It's great for stress and anxiety, but when we start throwing it into everything, usually what I find in these combination products is it's in such a small dose that I don't think it's doing anything. And we are at
Mm.
risk then of saying, well, I tried that blend for stress and it didn't work. So therefore, these herbs don't
Hmm.
work for me. In general, dosage for ashwagandha should be between 2 to 4 grams a day. That's quite a higher dose. You're going to see it in a combo supplement at like 100 milligrams.
Mhm.
So,
Totally, you do. I mean, you
yeah.
think about a gram. If we're
Yeah.
talking about by weight here, does the
Mhm.
pill you're taking even weigh a gram? And it's got a dozen different things in it. So I don't
Exactly.
know if you're really
Yeah.
taking very much of that.
I have your
I
book open. Typical dosage 2 to 6 grams.
Mhm.
I'm sharing this more so that you could know what you're getting out of the book than
Yeah.
to trump Leanne right now
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
these are her words.
Yeah.
But she also says, okay, powder 2 to 6 grams. Parentheses, 1 teaspoon equals about 4 grams per day. So if we're
Mhm.
talking by weight, she's telling you it's about a teaspoon worth. And
Yeah.
that's really helpful. I love that.
Yeah. And that's one of my favorite ways to recommend people take it. Find a nice high quality powder that you can get and mix it into your food throughout the day. So you're not lining up a whole counter full of supplements. We're taking enough supplements when we're trying to get pregnant anyway, right? We want a really good high
Oh,
quality
yeah.
prenatal, vitamin D, fish oil, all the things. Let's maybe integrate ashwagandha into our food. I think I have some recipes in my book for like nut butter balls where you can, use some almond butter and other spices. So to answer your question, I think in general, we want to have higher dosages. I think most of the combo products out there on the market are probably not doing anything. I see it in
Hmm.
coffee. I see it in protein powders. I think we have to be a little bit more intentional about the dosing uh, and finding these really high quality brands.
Awesome.
I'm interrupting this episode, listener, because we have got breaking news here for the Food Freedom Fertility listeners. Tempdrop's first research paper has officially been published. So, this is a scientific, peer reviewed journal that shows that Tempdrop can accurately detect ovulation. Of course, that is not news to us here on the Food Freedom Fertility podcast because we have been trusting this for many cycles at this point. Caitlin and I's clients for years have been relying on the Tempdrop. Each of us have used Tempdrop in our pregnancies to get pregnant, to prevent pregnancy, to understand what our bodies are doing. So it's not really that big of news here for you, listener, but it's big news for the world because Tempdrop now has data that shows a 98.6% accurate fertile window detection and a 93.3% ovulation day detection. This means that you can trust your Tempdrop to tell you, did you ovulate? When is your luteal phase? Are you fertile? Do you need to use this information to go seek some help, like working with me if you find your luteal phase is way too short, or there's really low temps, or something else going on? Tempdrop is now scientifically recognized in the medical community as a reliable ovulation detection tool. We are pumped for Tempdrop. We are so happy to be partnered with them. And we want you to be able to use this science, use this device to know about your body and to be able to communicate with professionals if you need help. So go to our show notes, go to the Tempdrop link, and then use code FFF10 at checkout for an additional discount. Okay, bye.
We are taking a break from the episode, and I want to chat with you a little bit about Fertility Cloud. If you've been told you need help ovulating, or you have PCOS and you're trying to figure out your next fertility step, I want to tell you about Fertility Cloud. They make fertility care simple, transparent, and affordable, especially when it comes to ovulation stimulation and ovulation induction treatments. Instead of waiting for months to see a fertility specialist or getting hit with surprise bills, Fertility Cloud lists every price clearly right on their website. You'll see exactly what you're getting into and exactly what it costs. No hidden clinic fees, no surprise invoices later. For my PCOS clients, this is huge. Their ovulation stimulation program can help jumpstart ovulation safely at home with physician guidance and medications delivered directly to you. You can do it all virtually, no driving to clinics or sitting in waiting rooms, and you can often even get appointments same day. If you're wondering, how do we do ultrasounds or what about lab draws? Don't worry, their concierge service helps determine where you can do that locally to you and coordinates with you on your behalf. It's just amazing. And here's the best part. If you're ready to take that next step, you can click the link in our show notes and get $50 off your first appointment. That means you get right in front of a fertility specialist for $115. That first visit gets you matched with a fertility doctor who actually understands your needs, and you'll walk away with a clear plan for your next cycle. So head to the link in our show notes, book your appointment, save $50 on your first Fertility Cloud visit, because fertility care should be transparent, affordable, and built for you. Okay, so sperm health from other parameters. You mentioned antioxidants.
Yeah.
So I know we're kind of talking buckets and we could jump around a little bit here, and likely we're going to because there is so overlap, right? As soon as we say something about antioxidants, we see benefits for overall health, fertility for women as well. But specifically, if there's anything that you have seen in research or particularly helpful for sperm progenesis or just like the actual keeping the sperm that are there healthy and alive.
One of the herbs that I like to talk about for sperm health and antioxidants is green tea because it is so common and it's so, almost overlooked as just a simple beverage. But there's some decent studies looking at the active constituents in green tea, like EGCG.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really powerful antioxidant and it's been shown to help support sperm parameters. And I like it again because it's a little bit easier to access and integrate into your daily life. Having a couple of cups of green tea a day is going to be a very high amount of antioxidants that are going to support sperm quality. And most of the research on green tea is done for sperm health, but it's reasonable to believe that because it's high in antioxidants and helping the cellular health of sperm, it's probably likely helpful for eggs as well, although we don't have the studies to point to that.
And there's so many different kinds of green tea.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have
Yeah,
thoughts
like
or
matcha.
Yeah. So
jasmine?
yes. So all
Uh,
the green teas come from the same leaf, and then it's how it's processed gives it a different name, like jasmine, sencha, gunpowder, and they all have different flavor profiles. So I always tell people, if someone says, I tried green tea and I don't like it, I say, try different types. Like I
mhm,
love jasmine, it's slightly floral.
mhm,
I like sencha, it's a little more green tasting. So that's one piece of it. The other is green tea should not be steeped for more than 3 minutes because it gets incredibly bitter and it brings
Bitter,
out
yeah.
those tannins. Yeah. And those tannins in the green tea can really make someone nauseous if you steep it too long or if you
That
have it
has
on an
happened to
empty
me.
stomach. Yeah. Empty stomach
That
or too
has
long of a
happened to
steep.
me.
empty
So does
stomach.
matcha fall into that same category?
Very similar. So matcha, you're as opposed to steeping the leaves and then discarding them, it gets ground to a powder and you ingest them. So matcha has all of those benefits of like the antioxidant potential, the EGCG, even the caffeine in slightly higher quantity or dose because you're ingesting the powder.
Whole leaf.
So the whole leaf. So I love matcha and I think it's a really
I love it
healthful tea.
too.
Yeah.
Oh, and you can just do so many different things with it. I've been taking a step back from coffee, as sad as I am every time I mention that. Pretty much every episode I talk about how sad I am that I don't drink coffee anymore. But it was just causing so many headaches for me, even
Mm,
decaf. And come to find out it was the mold. The mold that lives in the coffee is what was causing me so many problems. And so I switched over to matcha and I am loving it because it's like so versatile. It's not the same as coffee, okay?
mhm.
Don't
Yeah.
think that it's going to be,
Yeah.
but it is a very pleasurable experience all the same.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about having a nice hot beverage, or you might be drinking it iced as, yep, or an
An
iced one,
iced
but
one that you can swirl, chingly, 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 chingly.
yep, yeah,
And you
and
have to make that sound while you do it. Jingly,
The
jingly, jingly, jingly.
you guys know the ice beverage people. You totally like the girl at your work that gets like a Dunkin' Donuts coffee she could drown in and drinks it for the rest of the day. She's always swirling it at her desk. Yeah.
Jingly. And she's going, jingly, jingly.
Chingly, chingly, chingly.
Okay, what anything else? Okay, obviously, and this won't be partner specific necessarily. We should talk about sleep. We should talk about some of these bigger categories. But anything else for the men's in the room that you want to bring up? I see a nice
yeah.
note on turmeric and curcumin. Is there
Mhm.
you don't have to talk about that? Is there just anything else stand out that somebody
Yeah.
may have not heard about or should for sure hear about?
Yes. I love ginger because it's, again, one of those kitchen herbs that we all have access to. I love working with the fresh root and making a nice, strong ginger tea. It's high in antioxidants, again, and we know that like antioxidants are just so helpful for sperm production. But it helps improve blood flow to the pelvic region. And I find that so many of us sit so much throughout the day. We're working at our computers all day long, everything's on Zoom. It's important to remember to get up and move. If we can also layer in some herbs that help improve pelvic blood flow, I think that's helpful too.
Is that a
Also,
good one for like testicular blood flow?
absolutely, yeah. Pelvic blood flow, testicular
Mm.
blood flow. And, side note, it's a great antibacterial, antiviral herb. So I'll often reach for
Yeah.
it this time of year if someone's starting to not feel well. It's a great
Mhm.
thing to add to your tea.
Okay, I didn't think of this before, but now that we're talking about blood flow, I was just thinking about making a joke about having sex. But now that I'm thinking about it, blood flow to the penis is really important.
Hmm.
And certainly something that comes up in the TTC world is pressure around sex,
Hmm.
performance anxiety, and
Yeah.
flaccidity, we could say.
Full
So
acidity.
Yeah.
are there thoughts on, I'm sure there's no well, maybe there is a Viagra of the herbal world, but is there
Mhm.
something that could be supportive? Maybe not something that's going to like make your penis erect, but could be
Yeah.
helpful for somebody that's struggling with that?
Yeah, definitely. And I look at it in a couple layers. One is some of the direct herbs that have been studied and shown to help support sexual function and erections, which I'll mention. But then the other piece of it is making sure we're talking about and managing stress and sleep, because those two things are so important for a healthy sexual function. But as far as herbs that have been shown to be helpful with erectile function, we go back to ashwagandha. That has some good studies to show because it works as an adaptogen. It works on the brain and testes communication. So it increases FSH, LH
Mm.
production. So that does help with sexual function.
Is that true in
Um,
women too, increasing FSH and LH? Is it just
yes,
like a pituitary?
yes.
Okay,
It is.
interesting.
And it tends to raise FSH and LH when
When
it's
needed, like it's a
needed, but
nudge,
it's,
not
yes,
a
it's not
push.
going to
Okay.
push. It's not a
Okay.
push.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So ashwagandha is another one I think about for erectile function. Another one is maca, and it's
Mhm.
funny. Maca, again, I have a healthy respect for maca, but it's also one of my pet peeves because it got blown up in the 2000s as like the
The
sexual
love herb.
function.
Mhm.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it's not. You're not going to take maca and feel like completely overwhelmed by sexual feelings at all, but it's very nutritive. It's full of lots of vitamins, lots of minerals. It helps support our connection between our brain and our reproductive organs. So I think it makes sense that it's supportive, but it's a gentle support.
I mean, talk about what maca is for our audience, because I think of it as like just this root vegetable thing
Hmm.
that's like wah wah.
Yeah,
But is
yeah,
it more powerful
yeah,
than that? Because it
yeah,
used to be like it's even great for PCOS, and I'm like, it's not
yeah,
that great when we have all these other more
yeah,
powerful things. It's not that it couldn't be helpful,
yeah.
but is it the most helpful? It's really low on the list for me.
Yeah, I would not think of it for PCOS. I don't think it's going to move the needle, as you said. I think so it is a root herb. It's often, you can get it in capsule form, you can get it in dried form. It's highly nutritive, which is why I think it has some benefit for some people, is especially if their nutrition isn't great. There can be some, added boost from just getting all the micronutrients and all of the other
Minerals. Mhm.
constituents. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
high in minerals. It's been used for centuries in Peru as a food based. It's really food, so it's part of their culture. So there are some studies showing that it can be helpful for erectile function, and it has helped in certain clinical studies. But I think it's a subtle piece, and I think again it's one piece of the puzzle. I never want to jump to that without backing up and saying, let's talk about your stress levels, let's talk about your sleep, and overall lifestyle.
Right, lifestyle medicine, herbs as a layer and a component, but not the only
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah. Not trying to outdo the other things that
Hmm.
you don't actually want to change.
Right.
Okay, so flipping it a little bit before we move on from the sperm talk, is there anything that people should be watching out for? Is there any like, hey, avoid this because this is actually working against you? Because I know there's herbs out there that Caitlin and I specifically use to lower testosterone and to try
Hmm.
to have people make less androgen. So this is like the
In women,
goat's
but
rue, yeah, saw
sometimes it's funny
palmetto.
because they have the opposite effect in men
Hmm.
sometimes. But yeah, we're going to take a break from this episode to hear about one of our sponsors. You've probably heard me say this before, but preparing your body for pregnancy is not just about you, it's about both of you. Fertility is truly a team effort, and that's why I love the Fullwell Fertility Trio for Two. Fullwell was founded by a fellow registered dietitian and fertility expert, Ayla Barmer, and this bundle was designed to support both partners in the months leading up to conception. It combines their top rated prenatal vitamin, omega 3 fish oil, and a fertility booster supplement that covers things like CoQ10, N-acetylcysteine, alpha lipoic acid, and organic ashwagandha root extract. The nutrients here support overall egg quality, sperm health, fertility, and even your stress resilience. If your partner's semen analysis looks normal, or if it's suboptimal and we need to improve things, nutrition plays a key role for things like sperm motility, count, and DNA quality. For women, these same nutrients help with ovulation, egg development, and healthy hormone balance, not to mention mitochondrial support, which is a huge piece of how your gametes mature and get ready to be that queen egg or that king sperm that make it to combining to form an embryo. These things are foundational for a strong, healthy pregnancy. I personally love that Fullwell's formulas are third-party tested, they're evidence-based, and made with doses that actually match what the research shows we need. No fluff, no underdosing. So if you're planning to start trying this winter or sometime in 2026, or you've been trying to conceive for a while, it's time to think about starting to nourish your bodies for what's ahead, or take a step up from your current protocol to one that is high quality. Head to fullwellfertility.com and use the code FFF20 for 20% off your order. That's FFF20 at checkout. I'll drop the link in the show notes for this specific fertility trio bundle and for Fullwell, along with this code FFF20. Give yourself and your future family the best foundation with Fullwell's fertility trio for two.
Herbs to
Yes.
avoid. What should somebody be watching out for? Maybe it was in a
Mhm.
blend they were using for other things. It's something they're in a tea or whatever. And I know probably like something that you're using to like season your
Mhm.
food is probably not like in an amount you'd need to
Right.
worry about. But like, yeah, just like what should people be watching out for? What do you want to make sure to avoid?
Yes. So when someone is actively trying to conceive, we want to be really careful about everything we're putting in our body. And this is something that I actually go through when I'm working with somebody is I'll say, I want to do an audit of everything you're putting in your body because herbs can be hiding in things you don't expect, like a protein blend or a greens drink or that
Mhm.
mushroom powder.
Energy
Energy drinks,
drink.
yes. So, for example, ginseng. I will see ginseng often in a greens powder or a mushroom powder, energy drink. It is not safe when you're trying to conceive. There's some studies that suggest it might be a teratogen, which can cause birth defects. So, yeah,
Oh,
so
Lord.
completely want to avoid things like ginseng. We want to avoid things that are going to stimulate or bring on a period. So, stimulate the uterus or bring on a period. Those are called emmenagogues, yarrow, mugwort, motherwort. Those are all herbs that are very safe in general in other circumstances, but not when you're trying to conceive. Um, Also, want to stay away from strong laxative herbs during that time. So,
What's
senna,
senna?
cascara. They can just be too stimulating to the pelvic region and to the uterus. So, just really being conscious about what herbs we're using during that time is important. And then once a person becomes,
What about oh, sorry. I was going to say, what about herbs that people use for like pain, for mood? I'm thinking about like
Mhm,
kratom,
mhm,
cannabis. What is your
yeah,
advice for people? Maybe not. Okay, we can't say this is
right.
medical advice. Share with us your
Yes.
wisdom, Leanne, on
Yes.
these
So, my
herbs.
perspective on some of these pain herbs is that we don't have enough research to show and know that it is safe when trying to conceive or when pregnant. So, I feel that it's best until we know more, until we have data, to avoid things like cannabis for both partners. Cannabis can affect sperm health as well as um, egg quality and then affect the early stages of pregnancy once you're pregnant. So I think until we know more, it makes sense to avoid these things.
Okay, what about
Awesome.
kratom? That's like such a new hot
Hmm.
herb that people are putting in
Hmm.
everything. I'm seeing it even in like
Yep.
mocktails, alcohol
Yes. Same
alternatives.
thing. I do not think there's enough safety data to say that we can use it when you're trying to conceive or pregnant. I would avoid it.
Okay. Anything else on the like so we talked about how So for like sperm health, because Caitlin and I have used a couple herbs to deliberately lower testosterone in women. The two that I'm thinking of are goat's root and saw
Mhm.
palmetto. Does that translate the same way into sperm health? Like, should a man be avoiding these things, or should he maybe be
Yeah.
using them?
They don't, it does have a different effect on a man, but in general, I don't find that both of those herbs make a lot of sense when trying to lower testosterone in a woman. For men, they
Mhm.
have a different effect. Saw palmetto has more research and studies to help support benign prostate on BPH on a person, but not so much with testosterone and sperm.
Okay, two more herbs that are getting a lot of attention right now, especially in the PCOS community, are berberine and white
Hmm.
peony. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts to share with our audience
Yeah,
on
so
these
they're both
herbs?
safe. So we'll start there. Yeah,
Oh, good.
and white peony has been used for centuries. It's often combined with a little bit of licorice. It's a traditional Chinese medicine blend.
Oh, yeah, licorice.
Hmm.
That's another really good
Yes,
one to bring up,
yes.
I'd say.
So white peony and licorice can be very helpful with PCOS and supporting people in that way. And it's safe. So I think it makes a lot of sense to bring into a protocol. Um, I worry a little bit with licorice if someone has elevated blood pressure because it can be dangerous.
That's going to be
Yeah,
my
it
next
can be
question.
dangerous, but
Dangerous in
it
what
can
way?
push your blood pressure a little bit higher
Oh,
So
if
if
it's
okay.
it's
already
already
high.
high, you want
Yeah.
to avoid it.
If your blood pressure is normal, it doesn't seem to be a problem, but I always, want to keep a close eye on it. There's also deglycerized licorice or GGL. Yeah,
More
yeah.
GI. And can you describe, would somebody taking a DGL licorice be benefited with PCOS or no?
They they could be. So it's such a fine. I hate to give those like maybe answers, but it really does depend. I think, yeah,
Would you
hmm
call it as powerful as
no,
regular licorice?
no.
In the way that it's being used. DGL, guys, is more often used when we're talking about
Hmm.
GI
Yeah,
treatments.
like
Hmm.
GERD,
Yeah.
reflux. I see it a lot for
And it's
that.
really soothing
Mhm.
and really beneficial for that. But again, you're taking it in for that specific reason and not usually in a powder form, so it can coat the digestive system and have some really direct benefits that way. Yeah.
Amazing. You're
That
like this little herbal Bible
I know.
dictionary.
I'm going to keep
Yeah, I
firing
love it.
questions
This
at
is
you
fun.
if that's
Yeah, I
all
love
right
it.
with you. Okay, great. Okay, gosh, it's like we have
Mhm.
Professor Sprout right here with
I know. I was
us.
just going to say, we re recorded a moment ago and I didn't get to use my muggle joke, but
Mandrake, that's the name of the screaming herb. It just came to me. That little plant that screams.
Not
Mandrake.
a super common herb used today. I can't say I've
Nobody
ever used
cares.
mandrake.
So
Yeah.
Harry Potter. Harry
Yeah.
Potter. I was trying to think of okay. So since we're talking about licorice, that brings me to my next question, which is mucilage herbs. I see these sometimes being promoted for cervical
Hmm.
mucus, for making that slippery mucus in your
Hmm.
vagina. Um, I've even seen suppositories with some of these herbs, taking it orally. Like, what are these herbs? What are they supposed to be doing? Are there any we should be adding? Just I'd love to hear
Hmm.
your
Yeah.
brain's thoughts
Well,
on
the
these
first thing I
things.
think about when someone tells me they're not making enough cervical fluid is, well, let's support your natural estrogen rise in the first half of your cycle because that is what is
Yeah.
producing your cervical fluid.
oh,
Ding
Leanne,
ding,
we
right
love
answer.
Yeah.
you.
So I am not a fan of using herbs to push this. I just don't think it's going to work. We need to get to the root of why you're not producing a lot of cervical fluid. Let's work on ovulation. Let's work on your, estrogen levels. Yeah.
An herbalist saying get to the root.
Yeah.
How about that, guys?
Yes. Yeah. So that's my philosophy. I've never worked with herbs in a way to, increase fluid directly. I will work with
Okay.
mucilaginous herbs for other things, like more in the immune system, like if someone has a respiratory infection.
Totally. That's where I
Yeah.
see it. Okay, I think that maybe is my list here. Do you know what's another one that's controversial? I will say is things in the mint category: peppermint,
Hmm.
spearmint, wintergreen. Um, People are using them to lower
Yeah.
the androgenic effects of testosterone. Like I've seen people say, drink
Yeah.
this mint tea, it'll keep your mustache
Mhm.
at bay. But then I've also seen people say you cannot be having this when you're trying to conceive because it's dangerous for pregnancy.
Yeah.
Give us your take on the
So my take
mints.
on the mints is spearmint only. I don't recommend wintergreen. I mean, peppermint is probably fine too, but spearmint is the one that has been studied and shown to potentially be beneficial. It's in the dosage of like 2 teacups a day. That's not a huge amount, and it can help with
Hmm.
androgens. I've seen it in my own practice where people, it has helped with some facial hair, and um, but again, it's not going to work for everybody all the time. It depends on that person's particular levels. But I feel very comfortable trying it. I mean, 2 cups of a spearmint tea is, it's a pretty healthy and safe thing to try, and it is safe and it is
Yeah.
safe in pregnancy. I wouldn't use wintergreen. Peppermint is considered safe in pregnancy, but the studies for facial hair and lowering androgens were done specifically on spearmint. Yeah,
Specifically with spearmint.
yeah.
Interesting. I have
Okay, I
one more
think that's
question.
like half my list.
Can we go back to
Mhm.
licorice for a second? Some people are really like, ooh, you can use it for androgens, but be careful for what it's going to do to your
Mhm.
adrenal gland. And a lot of times, the people that are concerned about androgens also have stress levels or maybe androgenic adrenal production, right? We're talking about DHEAS and not specifically like the ovarian androstenedione becoming testosterone becoming. So, can you speak to that a little bit? Like, who should be concerned? What would maybe be a contraindication
Mhm.
versus who might be like a better
Yeah.
choice
I
for?
think where people get into trouble with licorice in general is they take too high of a dose in as a single herb. And it was never really used that way traditionally. And I find that it
Mm.
works best when it's a small percentage, like less than 10% of a blend. So licorice is just really, it is enough of a nudge to sort of the adrenal gland so that we are helping to manage cortisol levels so that our cortisol is not too high, but it's also not too low. It gives that little nudge, but we don't want like a big whack of licorice. I think that's where we get in trouble.
Hmm.
I've thought of another question. So my next question is delivery
Hmm.
method. Is a tea versus a tincture versus a pill versus a gel cap? Like, I know sometimes it maybe doesn't matter as much, like a dried herb versus a fresh herb. Are there sort of a highlight reel of herbs where you find the delivery method being superior in one way versus another, a fresh versus a dried? Is there kind of like a hit list that you think of herbs that really
Yeah.
stand out?
So one that jumps out, we already talked about, was ashwagandha, because it's done in higher doses of that, 2 to 4 to 6 grams. I feel like it's really effective
Hmm.
in powder form and mixed into foods. If someone comes to me and says, I've had this happen where people say, oh, I had this tincture of ashwagandha and I took a milliliter a day. I'm like, that, and it didn't work. Well, there's no surprise that didn't work. It just wasn't
Yeah.
enough. So some herbs like that I feel should be in powder form in pretty large doses. Let's try to get it into your food. Other herbs like we talked about peony. I would find peony to be most helpful in like a tincture form because you can get the right
Okay.
dosage. There's no capsules for your body to break down. Vitex is another one. I think Vitex works very well as a tincture.
Yeah, I do tincture a
Hmm.
lot, much to my
I know,
clients' horror.
I know.
It's a if you haven't tried it, it's a
It's
bitter herb.
bitter and it's great in water first thing in the morning, which is like quite the wake up. Yeah.
Whew. It is. Okay, so that leads me to another question. I'm full of them today. We often hear some alarm around tinctures. Unfortunately, in this audience, we have gals that are just so abundantly cautious because they've been
Hmm.
through hell, truthfully. Years of infertility, pregnancy losses, like every scary bad thing. And so they're always told, hey, avoid alcohol, no alcohol, cut
Hmm.
out the alcohol. And then they see this 99% alcohol tincture for their herb and they think, well, this cannot possibly
Yeah.
be healthy for me. Can you speak to the alcohol
Yes.
sometimes
So
used?
first of all, we're using really small amounts. So a 5 milliliter dose would be a pretty, hefty dose, and that's a teaspoon. So we're talking about teaspoon extract of
Mhm.
alcohol. Um, I'm very comfortable with that small amount. I think that it's safe. It's considered safe through pregnancy. So it is a very small amount of alcohol. Now, if someone has an aversion to alcohol and they really feel strongly that they don't want to use it, we can work around it, and we can use capsules, or we could use glycerin based tinctures, but glycerin based tinctures are a little bit weaker than alcohol extract tinctures. So, yeah.
Yeah, especially with like flower essences, and there's some things that just really need the alcohol. The people that I think of that are sort of fall into this category are addicts in
Hmm.
recovery.
The taste.
That
Hmm.
alcohol taste is just so very
Hmm.
triggering, or they've gotten themselves in trouble with this before. I've seen people with recovery under their belt start reaching for, they have a death in the family, a divorce, a breakup, something like that, and they start reaching for a tincture to help with their nerves. And after a couple weeks, they're drinking a bottle of it in one sitting, and they're moving on to drinking a bottle of vanilla extract, and they're telling themselves, this is not a problem, this is not me really drinking alcohol, but this is just, I guess, me personally having such a family history of addiction, um, thinking of people that might not be safe when is any form of strong alcohol
Hmm.
in their home.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's an important consideration. And I think there are alternatives to alcohol based tinctures if it's not going to work for someone.
I think the other person that might be triggered is anybody who listened to our podcast who's heard us say there's no safe amount of alcohol.
That's what I was trying to address originally. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
pregnancy, which, I've heard people describe the amount of alcohol in one of these tincture dosages as similar to what you might find in a banana. And I
Yeah, a
think that
ripe
that,
piece of fruit, a slice of
Mhm.
sourdough.
yeah, and I don't know the validity of that, but I think the other thing is what Leanne mentioned earlier, what you may be doing to support trying to conceive is not necessarily what you may
Mhm.
continue doing once we
Yeah.
find out your pregnancy. And the amount of exposure in a small tincture, unless you're lining up like 12 different tinctures,
Mhm.
we're not going to say that this adds up to a really meaningful amount of alcohol.
And I think that's really important to remember that whatever we're doing when we're trying to conceive is going to be different than once you get that positive pregnancy test or you're pregnant. And I'm very conservative in the
Mhm.
first trimester of pregnancy, and generally stop all herbs. I don't think I think our bodies know how to be pregnant. I think we are, we want to just focus on the safe prenatals. It's fine to have culinary doses, maybe a couple of teas that we know. I have a pregnancy safe list of teas that I'll refer to. So we're talking about food based and tea based doses of things. I'm not typically recommending someone in that first trimester take tinctures unless we're dealing with something that
Mhm.
we're working with your doctor, and this is a problem we're trying to solve for.
Mhm. I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
Can we kind of go back to the bucket
Mhm.
style conversation and kind of shift over to we've talked about male side, we've alluded to pelvic circulation, we've talked a little bit about PCOS, but from the side of like supporting female fertility, you mentioned earlier trying to tease out root cause. Is there something going on with ovulation? Do we want to support the luteal phase? Do we need to do something to augment and support uterine lining? Can we like jump into each one of those categories a little bit and just talk about herbs
Mhm.
you think
Yeah,
of?
absolutely. So I spend a lot of time with people, and I talk about this in the book. One of the best things a person can do when they're trying to get pregnant is understand their menstrual cycle. Like, start tracking it. Yeah. I
Preach.
mean, know if you're ovulating.
Now let's take a break from here from our sponsor, Temp Drop.
Yes. I mean,
That's one of our
yeah,
sponsors this season.
I like working with temp drop because there's no question on whether or not ovulation has happened or not. We know what day it happened. Once we know what day ovulation happens, and then we can, when you get your period, we know exactly how long your luteal phase is. And that just gives us so much information. So the herbs that I'm going to recommend or suggest are going to be specific to that person's menstrual cycle and what we're seeing regarding ovulation and their luteal phase. It's not a blanket like this herb is great for fertility. It's like these herbs are going to be helpful to
Mm.
support estrogen production in the first half of your cycle so that you build a strong enough um, egg that is going to ovulate and have a healthy enough follicle that turns into a corpus luteum that has enough strength to produce progesterone in the second half of your cycle. So that's sort of the lens that we sort of step back and start with. How do we support that? Um, so some favorite herbs that I'll often reach for. This is funny. I like to talk about Vitex, and I talk about it in a,
Mhm.
like, again, a love-hate relationship. I love how Vitex can support some people in their fertility, but I absolutely get so prickly, and I hate how it's been listed as the fertility herb, because 75% of the people who
Yeah.
come to my practice, if they're taking Vitex already, it's not needed and we stop it. So areas that I think Vitex can be helpful is, in particular, when people are having those irregular cycles. If they're not ovulating, it can be really helpful to, again, reestablishing that connection, the signals from the brain to the ovaries, FSH, LH, helping that whole cascade help. Vitex can be really helpful for that. But it's not helpful if someone has a normal cycle and is ovulating regularly and has a healthy luteal phase. So that's one area and one
Mm.
herb that I think about um, for ovulation.
Okay, question about Vitex. Is there a time in your cycle? So I use it a lot for weakened luteal
Hmm.
phase to support that
Yes.
progesterone production. I also use it a lot when somebody is recovering from
Hmm.
undernourishment, overexercise. They're having regular cycles, but they're having like a 2-day bleed with like maybe one day where a tampon is necessary, and the next is like a panty liner, and that's just really light, really thin lining. Um, I usually use it in that
Hmm.
circumstance, and then I will avoid it for suspected endometriosis because of my own trauma with using Vitex and having a few periods from hell after being on it. It's just being too
Hmm.
stimulating and causing more problems for me. I'm very cautious around it there. What is sort of is there like a guideline on like
Hmm.
when somebody should take it? Like, should you start taking it while
Hmm.
you're bleeding? Should you wait? Like, what is
Yes.
your thoughts on
So
that?
and actually I agree in that I find Vitex very helpful for hypothalamic amenorrhea, or someone who, like you said, has
Hmm.
been undernourished and their periods are getting farther and farther apart or stopping completely, because again, it's helping the brain and the ovary connection. But what I find is really helpful with Vitex is taking it for the entire cycle. Um, because it's helping the hormone cascade, I feel that it's helpful to start
Hmm.
at the very beginning of the cycle and continue to dose it through the entire cycle. I know there's some practitioners who will say, well, I'll use it from ovulation until the next period because I want to help with
Hmm.
progesterone support. I find it works even better if you back it up and you start it at the very beginning of the cycle. It does help build up healthy levels of estrogen, which again are going to help us with healthy levels of progesterone in the second half of the cycle. So I use it the entire cycle.
Got it. Thank you so much. This is just so practical. All the things, all the questions
And
you're answering.
and somebody who's taking something like a Vitex, of course, we see a lot of these natural medicines being something we would consider as slow
Mm-hmm.
medicines. Even if we're trying to impact testosterone levels, and when should we expect to see impacts on
Yes.
cycles? What's the general guidance you give your patients?
At least 2 months. And honestly, I find that it's usually something like Vitex, it's about 3 months before we start really noticing some significant changes. Now, if somebody has a negative reaction earlier, then that's absolutely possible and we would want to pivot and make a change. But I ask people to give it at least 3 months before we're going to know if it's having an effect.
For making any
Yeah.
definitive statements about whether it's
Yeah.
working or not.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hey, friends, we're taking a break from our episode to talk about one of our sponsors. And this sponsor is the PCOS app. Did you know that I made an app all about PCOS? Well, I did, and you can find so many resources in it. We have slowly moved all the resources from my PCOS Hormone Academy course over into the PCOS app, and that talks about all things PCOS topically. Like if you have acne, you can go look at the skin and acne modules and see what does Western medicine offer? Why does this impact PCOS? What can we do about it? What are natural remedies? What are nutritional remedies? We talk about hair loss and hirsutism all through that lens where we go through what is it? Why is it impacted by PCOS? Or why do we need to pay more attention to this particular thing? And what can we do about it? And we provide a vast resource to help you both advocate for yourself at the doctor's office and treat yourself at home naturally. Now, the exciting thing that I want to share with you is starting in January 2025, we're starting to migrate all of the content that I have published so far on fertility into this app. I used to sell a course for $700 all about how to get pregnant with PCOS, and that is all getting moved into the app between January and March. So you can take the course as if you enrolled in the whole thing for $10 per month. So head to your app store, whether you're on a Google Android device or an Apple device. If you type in PCOS app, you just look for that really pretty lavender flower, you'll find it. Download it and join us because you're going to get weekly recipes and all the fertility focused PCOS content that you need. It will start being uploaded under the Academy tab. So stay tuned for that. And let's get back to our episode.
Okay, well, I think that I have run out of my 20 questions lightning round for you, Liane. Look, I just looked across this table. Look what I noticed. Dried herbs. This was given to me by my midwife. We've got nettle, oat straw, red raspberry leaf, and
Yes.
alfalfa.
Oh, that's a beautiful blend. And how are you going to use that?
I'm going to make a tea. I think I'm going to do a cold
Hmm.
infusion where I put it in my fridge. This is what I learned to do with
Hmm.
nettle when I was in college, was that you get more of the mineral out of it if you do a cold infusion
Hmm.
overnight. So usually I do a
Yep.
French press, pour in water, and then let it sit overnight and then drink it some point
Yeah,
the
I
next
love
day.
that. That's a beautiful blend for pregnancy and postpartum because it's lots of minerals, lots of nutrients, lots of antioxidants. It's a really great blend.
Okay, I just thought of another question. Caitlin, it's going to throw me out the window. Okay, so what I just think so much about people that have allergies because I'm focused on myself. And I've just thought about
Hmm.
stinging nettle. So that sort of gives me a more broad question is about people reaching for herbs while they're trying to conceive because perhaps the medication that they have been leaning on for years is no longer something they consider
Indicated.
safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, indicated. Or even like allergies is what came to mind when I saw that
Hmm.
stinging nettle leaf. We want a lot of good fertile
Hmm.
cervical mucus, and we want a prostaglandin, interleukin, histamine response, at least at some level, for your body to be able to receive an embryo once it has been formed. So a lot of people are ditching
Hmm.
allergy meds because it dries up their cervical mucus and can sort of reduce the inflammation that you really actually
Hmm.
want when it comes time to try to implant a baby. What do you recommend for people that are looking for alternatives to medications for just sort of common everyday
Yeah.
problems, headaches,
Yes.
allergies,
Yeah.
such?
So herbs can be really helpful for those things, and allergies are a great example. Nettle is one of my favorite things to reach for when someone's struggling with allergies. The problem, though, is you have to start early and stay on it for a prolonged period of time. It's not like taking an allergy pill where you feel miserable and you take it and you're better in an hour.
Yeah, like what I think of is like I'm allergic to
Hmm.
cats, and so it's like if I know I'm going to be in someone's house that has a bunch of cats, and I don't want to be like sneezing and blowing my
Yeah.
nose, I'll take a preventative
Yeah,
Claritin
yeah,
or something
yeah.
like that.
Herbs don't really work that way, at least the ones that I've experienced,
Slower.
right? So I think about things like
Okay.
nettle, reishi mushrooms blend, a really high quality reishi mushroom blend.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's where we were going to talk about
I
mushrooms.
really
Okay.
like reishi mushroom for helping to support a healthy immune system. But again, it's got something that's going to take time to build. And so you've kind of got to be on it for a while. But the good news is that they're safe when you're trying to conceive. They're even safe in pregnancy. So I feel comfortable using
Ooh
them.
la la.
Okay,
Excellent.
so that brought up the
Mhm.
mushrooms, and maybe we put a pin in it after mushrooms, but this is the other major thing right
Mhm.
now. It's showing up
So
in
popular. Mushroom coffee, mushroom tea, mushroom
Yeah. Yeah.
powders.
So they're so popular right now, and there's good reason. There's good research and data to show that some of the mushrooms are what's called adaptogens, so they help our body adapt to stress. And who doesn't want a little help supporting our stress right now? They help us
Mhm,
feel less stressed. They help our
mhm.
cortisol reaction. They can help with sleep, energy, recovery after working out. There's lots of research on cancers and mushrooms. So I understand why the wild popularity. I think where I get a little bit worried is that it is in all of our foods, all these powders and mushrooms and foods, and we have to be really careful what's considered safe when you're trying to conceive. And really, and so I back
Mm.
it up and say, well, if a person were to be taking this mushroom blend and become pregnant, and then find out that they're pregnant, and will they look back and say, oh, well, I've been taking this for a few weeks, not knowing I was pregnant? Would I
Would
be
I
upset?
be okay
Yeah, would
with
I be
that?
okay? And really,
Mhm.
the only mushroom that's considered safe in pregnancy is reishi. So if someone I'm working with, if it's
Besides like culinary mushrooms like
absolutely,
cremini, white button mushroom.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, all of the
Portobello's.
culinary mushrooms, cooking them is completely safe and wonderful. Like they're a good source of fiber. They're great for our microbiome. They're high in, immune support. So I think if we can have more mushrooms in our culinary world, that's great. Taking something medicinally as a powder or a supplement, I would stick to ones that are known to be safe in pregnancy, which is really just reishi. And I'd want to
Okay.
source it from a really high quality company, because I think that the more popular a supplement gets or an herb gets, the more likely it is to end up with companies that maybe aren't using the highest of quality and transparency.
Yeah, just getting whatever
Hmm.
from wherever. So what's a good mushroom company? Do you have one off the top of your head?
Yes,
Or just
herbal
herbal company in
companies.
general for people to
Yes, so
source.
Gaia is a wonderful herbal company, and they do have some mushroom supplements. Host Defense is another one that is pretty high quality.
Hmm.
So those are two that I think are a great place to start.
Well, you have been amazing. I couldn't be more thankful for the time that we've spent together. If you haven't gone and clicked on the link in our show notes yet, or haven't Googled the Herbal Fertility Handbook, Natural Strategies to Increase Chance of Getting Pregnant, might I put in a request for your next book to be Herbal Strategies to Treat Your Children?
I love that. Yes.
Ah, yes.
So help, and we'll just have an entire crew follow
Yes.
you through the TTC to the mothering, and then how to treat your aging parents would be great. If you could get on that stat for me, that
I
would be
love it.
wonderful.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, how to treat your aging parents. That is bringing a knife to a gunfight, I find. You're going to try to bring herbs to that hot dumpster fire mess, the people that you're like trying to get to even wash their hands after they use the bathroom. How will we ever?
Not everyone's your dad, though.
He may be offended, except he doesn't know how to listen to a podcast, so we
I
wouldn't
know,
have.
right?
Yeah, he can't be here
Okay,
to
so
hear
we
that.
are at the end of our episode, which means Liane has earned the right to say a yeah, girl. She's been
Yeah,
here
give us
and
a yeah,
put
girl.
up
Thank
with
you.
us
Well,
so
my
long.
biggest yeah girl right now is the book launch. So we're just coming off. It's
Yeah,
Yay.
been it's been so
girl.
much fun. I love being out in the community, in bookstores, on podcasts. I don't think enough people are talking about fertility. Sometimes I think it is something that's happening behind closed doors and people are suffering in silence. And I think the more we can talk about it and the more we can talk about how we can support people, it just feels really good.
Love it. We are here for it. Thank you for writing this book, for making it so accessible to so many people. And Yeah, okay, that's a great yeah, girl. I went first last time, so let's have Caitlin do this one.
You went first last time.
Yeah, remember because I was talking about my genes?
You went second, but it's okay.
Oh, okay. All right. I went second. I'm going to go
Okay, but
second
now I
again then.
need to think. Now I need to think. Now I need to think.
Okay,
I
hold on.
had
I got
one and
one
it's
though.
gone. Okay, you go.
Okay, I'll tell mine. I'm giving a major yeah, girl to one of my friends and clinic owner here in San Diego, Carol Joy from Joy Wellness Partners.
Oh yeah, girl,
She
this
owns,
because I
yeah,
know it's
she owns,
coming.
yes, she owns a regenerative wellness clinic here in San Diego and not only has like always taken such great care of me and my family. She was the one that got me on the tirzepatide when I was trying to get pregnant at the beginning. She was the one doing all the in-body scanning to track and make sure everything was looking good. Just the best, but also just a good friend. Like this morning, Caitlin and I had planned to record these podcast episodes for weeks and weeks. And I'm solo parenting this week and next week and last week. But it just makes it much more challenging because the friend that was going to care for my children this morning, her sons are sick. And so we didn't want to mix the two kids together. And then my regular babysitter, who was then on deck, she woke up with a sickness. And so then she wasn't available. And so I was sort of scrambling on what I was going to do. So I call up my friend Carol and she's like, bring them on over. And took them all to the gymnastics gym. It's sort of a drizzly day here, so not a lot of like outside play happening. And so they got to go bounce around together for an hour and had just really stepped in and is somebody that my children love, somebody that I really trust, somebody that is just such a blessing to have in my life in pretty much every way. And so my yeah girl is a shout out to my friend Carol, who is just so great. I just look up to her so much. And she's helping me
Yeah,
out this morning.
Carol.
So yeah,
Yeah,
girl to
girl.
Carol.
Yeah, for
I
taking
know
all the
you
girls to
would love her,
gymnastics.
Caitlin. Let me tell you,
Oh,
this girl is just so, she's just a beam of light. It is so rare that you would hear a complaint or even like a negative comment from her. And yet she's still a very genuine person. She's not some like fake, weird, I don't know, Stepford wife. She's very real, but just like very deliberate about being positive is wonderful to be around.
I love that. Yeah, girl. That's the best.
It is.
Okay. I am gonna yeah, girl. I had a couple that I was like batting around, like which one do I like the most? But I want to yeah, girl, my cousin Haley, who's been texting me back and forth. She's somebody that like for years we just kind of like fell out of contact kind of for no good reason other than life and each of us having little babies. But um, there's four of us cousins that are about the same age, and she's a nurse and solo parenting a lot because her husband's also a nurse. And I'm just glad to have this like renewed friendship with her. She's and I have been texting back and forth this morning, but she's just the best. And she just told me a business idea that she has, and I'm just rooting for women in business right now. Like,
You are the
look at
best at that, Caitlin. You are, I
Leanne
would
wrote a
not be where I
book.
am without you at all. You are such a wonderful, wonderful asset when it comes to that.
I just think, wow. And she has a great idea. I'm like, run at it, girl. You're so in it. And
Yeah.
so anyway, women in business. Leanne launched a book and she's coming off a really big high of like, and also energy thing, right? Like it's a lot of energy to do podcasting tours and be in a community and do all those things. And um, I'm just so happy. I'm so happy for also a time period that we can do these things in. Like 50 years
Hmm.
ago, this is not what the women's of the world were
And people
doing.
weren't talking.
No, you needed like a big publisher to like approach you and be like, will you
Yeah.
do this? Otherwise, there was no
Yeah. And
access.
people weren't talking openly about their fertility journey, struggles, and path. So I'm really grateful.
Yeah,
Mhm.
girls. Yeah,
Yeah,
girls. And yeah,
girls.
Haley,
Yeah,
if you're
yeah to
listening to
every
this.
girl.
This was so good. A lot of times we get people on here that I'm like, go buy this book. And I'm like, yeah, it's probably a pretty good book. But I actually really think you should go buy this book. I think it could be really useful and a good read. And I also applaud Liane for some of the foundational fertility stuff she goes through that sometimes gets skipped over. And I think you did a really great job and really happy for you.
You did. And you can even, this is a book that you could read from cover to cover just to read it, or it's a book that you could get because exactly a reference book when you're like, oh, I think I'm going to use our sponsor Fullwell's fertility assist, their fertility boost, and then you can be like, well, hold on, let me. I'm taking a couple of things. Let me crack this book and see if these amounts are what I need, or if I'm maybe overdoing it because I'm also taking this other thing. Like you can just use this as a reference, just like Caitlin said.
Speaking of women in business, Soph and I got to go hang with Ayla and her team from Fullwell when we were recently in Nashville. And the thing we did, Liane, when we walked in as like the mixer, hang out, do something thing, was she had a bunch of herbs out and we mixed our own blends for tea.
I love that.
Yeah.
It was so fun, so beautiful.
And she had little cards like, do you want to have like a mineral boost? Are you looking more for sleep and relaxation, immune system? And you could take scoops of this, that, or the other thing. And then we were like the last ones to leave because we just love her. Couldn't get enough. And there's a little pouch. She was like, I don't really want to fly back to Boston with these bags of herbs that I've now poured into these bowls. So please take
as much as you want.
That sounds really fun. I hope you're enjoying your blends. I mean, teas are such an accessible and wonderful way to support our health and have like a little ritual and slow down. And there's just so many benefits to it. I love it.
And and to stay hydrated, that's not just a glass of freaking water. I love a nice glass of water when you're just like really thirsty and want to drink something down, but you need to have I need a little more fanciness in my life sometimes. And cold tea gets me there.
Ting-a-ling-a-ling, what'd you do earlier?
Ching-a-ling-a-ling, ching-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling.
All right, guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I think this one was one of our top. This one, aside from me disconnecting us many times, hopefully, listener, you don't experience that when you listen to it. But we had some technical problems caused by me.
Sophia told Liane to kill her dog.
I don't tell people that. It wasn't, guys, no.
We started off hard offending Liane.
I didn't take it personally at all.
It was, okay. Comedy is like jumping a motorcycle between two cars of a train. Like the timing in delivery is the only thing that gets it done. All right. And so her dog became inflamed and so was just like barking and barking. And the way that I phrased it was like, oh, can you put that dog outside? But instead I was like, Liane, I think you need to put your dog down. Instead of put your dog out. And the tone and everything, it made it funny.
Her dog was inflammatory, and instead of giving it ginger and curcumin, inflammatory to Sophia and I. All right, guys. Yeah, you can tell it's also Friday afternoon, and we're getting loopy.
That's a wrap on this Friday. If you're even still listening, God bless you.
Liane, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Was fun.
I loved it.
Bye, listener. Oh, like, review, subscribe. You know all that. Okay, bye.